Why was Satan so intent on claiming Moses' body after his death? This intriguing question takes us deep into a narrative filled with more than just a dispute over mortal remains. It signifies a profound spiritual conflict. The confrontation between the Archangel Michael and the devil isn't just a minor biblical detail. It represents a crucial battle for the integrity of worship and devotion among believers. As we unravel this enigmatic episode, we'll explore not only the significance of Moses within biblical history, but also the broader, unseen struggles that continue to influence our spiritual lives today. The Archangel's dispute. In the book of Jude, verse 9, a brief yet enigmatic encounter unfolds between the Archangel Michael and the devil, contending over the body of Moses. This peculiar episode sparks curiosity about the devil's intentions and why he was so eager to claim the remains of such a pivotal biblical figure. Moses, having led the Israelites out of Egypt and received the law from God, was not only a spiritual and political leader, but also a symbol of God's promises and power. The contention over his body, therefore, goes beyond a mere physical struggle. It represents a deeper battle between divine will and malevolent schemes. The devil, known for his role as the adversary, likely saw Moses' body as a tool to create division and idolatry among the Israelites, who might be tempted to venerate Moses rather than worship God directly. Michael's role in this scenario underscores his protective duty, guarding not just the physical remains, but also preserving the sanctity of God's law and the faith of the people. This clash over Moses' body highlights the ongoing spiritual warfare that often remains unseen, but profoundly affects the physical realm. The incident serves as a powerful reminder of the stakes involved in spiritual leadership and the perpetual conflict between good and evil that ripples through human history. Understanding this dispute helps illuminate the broader implications of spiritual allegiance and the importance of safeguarding sacred truths from corruption. Forbidden worship. The devil's attempt to seize Moses' body reflects a deeper strategy aimed at exploiting the revered status of Moses among the Israelites. By transforming his grave into a focal point of worship, the devil sought to contravene the foundational teachings Moses himself had delivered from God. The first two commandments, explicitly laid out in Exodus, sternly warn against idolatry and the worship of any created thing. Yet this is exactly the trap the devil hoped to set. If the Israelites were to begin venerating Moses' gravesite, it would shift their worship from the Creator to the created, undermining the very essence of their covenant with God. Such a shift would not only violate divine commandments, but also distort the Israelites' understanding and expression of their faith, effectively leading them astray. This tactic of the devil underscores his role as the deceiver, always ready to use even the most respected symbols for his own ends. In this context, Moses' grave could become more than just a memorial. It could morph into a spiritual snare, diverting devotion from God to an earthly representation. The battle over Moses' body, therefore, was not merely about physical remains, but represented a significant spiritual contest over the hearts and allegiances of God's people. The devil's actions serve as a stark reminder of the vigilance required to maintain purity in worship and the constant threats that seek to corrupt the devotion due to God alone. Golden calf trauma. The incident of the golden calf during Israel's wilderness journey, as recounted in Exodus, was a stark reminder of the Israelites' susceptibility to idolatry. This historical lapse into worshipping a created object instead of God demonstrated a profound vulnerability within the community. A vulnerability the devil was keen to exploit again with Moses' remains. By entangling the Israelites in a similar pattern of misplaced reverence, the devil aimed to repeat history, diverting their devotion from God to something tangible and earthly. This strategy was not merely about leading them astray. It was a calculated attempt to undermine the very lessons Moses had taught. The reverence for Moses, combined with the previous trauma of the golden calf, provided fertile ground for the devil to sow seeds of disobedience and distraction. If the Israelites began to idolize Moses' burial site, they would be repeating their earlier mistakes, demonstrating a failure to adhere to the divine commandments they had received. Such a scenario would not only dishonor Moses' legacy, but also weaken the spiritual fortitude of the nation, making them more susceptible to further deviations from their faith. This approach by the devil highlights a cyclical challenge within human nature: the pull towards visible, tangible symbols of devotion, which can often overshadow the abstract, more demanding aspects of faithfulness to an unseen God. The temptation to revere Moses' remains was a test of whether the Israelites had truly learned from their past or were still prone to the same spiritual pitfalls. A must-see shrine, Moses' stature as a revered leader who guided his people through pivotal moments, endowed his final resting place with the potential to become a celebrated pilgrimage site. The devil, aware of this, could see an opportunity to twist this reverence into a form of idolatry. By transforming Moses' tomb into a shrine, the focus could easily shift from a spiritual reflection on his teachings and God's laws to a physical fixation on the site itself. This shift from the spiritual to the material could dilute the Israelites' focus on God, redirecting their devotions and prayers towards a mere physical relic of the past. Such a transformation would not just distort the purpose of remembering Moses, but it could also create a spiritual stumbling block for the people, mirroring the distractions they faced in the wilderness. The possibility of Moses' tomb becoming a central religious site was fraught with the risk of encouraging a form of worship that was contrary to the very essence of Moses' mission, promoting a direct and unmediated relationship with God. The devil's interest in making the tomb a revered site was a cunning plan to reintroduce subtle forms of idolatry, thereby undermining the foundational monotheistic principles Moses had strived to instill. This scenario serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of allowing even the most respected figures to overshadow the omnipresence and sovereignty of God. A key lesson for all who seek to maintain purity in their faith and worship practices. Embalmed leaders and memorials. The reverence for embalmed leaders and the construction of memorials are practices that span various cultures and eras, illustrating how societies honor their historical figures. For instance, in Russia, the preserved bodies of Stalin and Lenin are displayed for public viewing, symbolizing their enduring political legacies. Such practices, however, carry a dual-edged sword, especially when viewed through the lens of spiritual worship. They can shift attention away from spiritual truths and direct it towards human achievements or relics. This phenomenon isn't limited to political figures. It could also apply to religious leaders like Moses. The danger lies in the potential for these memorials to become objects of veneration themselves, rather than simply serving as reminders of the individual's ideals or contributions. If Moses' body had been preserved and enshrined, it might similarly have become a focal point of reverence, thereby distracting from the monotheistic worship of God that Moses himself championed. This could lead to a form of idolatry, subtly encouraged by physical symbols of remembrance that overshadow spiritual devotion. Such scenarios highlight the importance of distinguishing between honoring one's past and veering into the worship of human figures, which can dilute the essence of spiritual faith. As we consider the historical context of Moses and the implications of his potential tomb becoming a shrine, it serves as a broader reflection on how we maintain the balance between respect for our heritage and the preservation of pure worship practices. God's exclusive worship. The core tenet of the monotheistic faith presented in the scriptures is the worship of God alone, undistracted and undiluted by any earthly entity or relic. This principle is central to understanding the conflict over Moses' body, which symbolized more than just a physical entity. It represented a potential pivot away from divine worship toward the veneration of a temporal object. The devil's intent in claiming Moses' remains was to exploit this venerated leader's mortal remains as a tool to divert the Israelites' worship from the eternal God to something tangible and earthly. This scheme wasn't just a challenge to the memory of Moses, but a direct assault on the foundation of their faith. By attempting to shift their focus to Moses' physical remains, the devil aimed to create a new point of spiritual allegiance, a relic that could be seen and touched, thus appealing to human senses and emotions in a way that spiritual faith often does not. The battleground for spiritual allegiance over Moses' body underscores a broader spiritual war, one that challenges believers to consider where their loyalties lie and what truly deserves their reverence. Such a narrative calls into question the essence of worship and the dangers of allowing anything, even the legacy of a profound leader like Moses, to usurp God's place at the center of spiritual life. The episode serves as a stark reminder of the importance of keeping faith pure from the contamination of idolatrous practices, no matter how subtly they present themselves. Accusations and Sins. The devil's interest in Moses' body may have been partly motivated by an opportunity to leverage Moses' past sins, such as the incident at Meribah, where he struck the rock to bring forth water instead of speaking to it as God had commanded. This moment of disobedience, recorded in Numbers 21-13, marked a significant lapse in Moses' otherwise steadfast faith and leadership. By holding on to Moses' physical remains, the devil might have planned to use these past sins as a means to challenge the integrity of Moses' legacy and possibly obstruct his future resurrection, as promised in the doctrines of faith. This scenario paints a picture of Satan not just as a tempter but as an accuser, using past transgressions as weapons against individuals even after death, thereby amplifying the sense of guilt and unworthiness among the living followers. The possession of Moses' body could thus serve as a visual reminder of human frailty and sin, potentially tarnishing the respect and veneration the Israelites held for Moses, and by extension, diminishing their morale and spiritual resilience. This manipulation would not only undermine Moses' historical and spiritual standing, but could also sow seeds of doubt about the redemption and grace that are central to faith. This strategy of the devil highlights the ongoing battle, not just for the bodies, but for the very souls of believers, reminding the faithful of the continuous need for vigilance against any force that seeks to distort or corrupt the legacy of God's messengers. Tempting the faithful. The devil's plot to transform Moses' grave into an object of idolatrous reverence reflects a cunning strategy to divert the Israelites' spiritual focus. By turning Moses' resting place into a shrine, the devil anticipated that the people might fixate on the tangible legacy of their great leader, rather than on their ongoing relationship with God. Such a shift could easily lead them to cling to the past, a past embodied by Moses' monumental achievements and leadership, instead of embracing the present and future guidance offered by God. This attachment to a physical site and its associated memories could undermine the core of their faith, which calls for a direct and personal communion with the divine. The idolization of Moses' grave would not just be a misdirection, but a regression into old patterns of behavior that had previously led them into sin, such as their worship of the golden calf. This scenario would effectively stall their spiritual growth and cloud their judgment, making them more susceptible to further deviations from their faith. By encouraging such a fixation, the devil aimed to weaken their spiritual resolve and dilute the strength of their covenant with God. The potential idolatry of Moses' grave would serve as a test of the Israelites' fidelity and spiritual maturity, challenging them to discern between honoring a revered figure and improperly elevating him to a divine status. This strategic temptation highlights the perpetual challenge faced by the faithful to keep their worship pure and directed solely at God, free from the distractions of the physical world. Michael's protective role. In the cosmic struggle between good and evil, Michael the Archangel emerged as a key protector in the battle over Moses' body. Tasked with safeguarding the sanctity of Moses' remains, Michael's intervention was crucial in thwarting the devil's attempt to use the prophet's body as a tool for deception. This encounter, though briefly mentioned in the book of Jude, highlights the significant role that celestial beings play in the spiritual realm, acting as defenders of order and fighters against chaos. Michael's actions went beyond mere protection. They were a decisive blow against the devil's plans to mislead the Israelites into idolatry and away from their worship of God. By securing Moses' body, Michael ensured that it would not become an idol or a focal point for misdirected reverence that could corrupt the faith of the people. This act was not only about guarding a physical location, but also about preserving the spiritual health and direction of an entire nation. Michael's role underscores the ongoing vigilance required to maintain the purity of worship and faith against the persistent threats posed by evil. His intervention serves as a reminder of the powerful forces at play in the unseen world, dedicated to protecting the truth and integrity of God's promises and commandments. The Archangel's protective actions highlight a deeper theological point, that divine watchfulness and intervention are ever present, ensuring that the forces of deception do not prevail. A spiritual battle unseen. The contention over Moses' body, as described in the book of Jude, unveils a profound aspect of spiritual existence, the ongoing, unseen battle for the hearts and minds of believers. This spiritual warfare, where celestial beings and demonic forces clash, is not just about historical or biblical figures, but involves every believer and the core of their faith. The incident emphasizes that our devotion should remain firmly anchored in the worship of God alone, undistracted by the tangible or temporal elements that may seem spiritually significant. Moses, a pivotal figure in religious history, represents more than his physical existence. His life and deeds point directly to God's guidance and providence. The attempt by the devil to claim his body symbolizes the broader temptations and distractions that believers face, attempting to shift their focus from divine to earthly matters. This struggle is not merely about the preservation of a physical body, but a testament to the importance of keeping faith pure and directed at God, free from the corruptions introduced by idolatry. As we reflect on this battle, it serves as a reminder that our spiritual journey is fraught with challenges that require vigilance and perseverance. Moses' legacy, therefore, transcends his earthly journey, serving as a beacon that guides us back to the eternal presence of God, reminding us of the divine leadership that should guide every aspect of our lives. This narrative encourages believers to see beyond the physical and to foster a relationship with God that is deep and personal, unmarred by the visible and transient. Thank you for joining us on Divine Narratives to explore the profound spiritual battles that shape our faith. If this journey through the mysterious and unseen conflicts like the dispute over Moses' body has intrigued you, please like, subscribe, and comment below with your thoughts or questions. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to stay updated with our latest videos as we continue to uncover more divine stories and truths. Join us next time for another deep dive into the narratives that challenge and enlighten our spiritual understanding.